Welcome to the Coaching Game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Jill Greenbaum. Hey, Jill.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here. Oddly enough, or greatly enough, I think, Jill and I met through the Coaching Game. And anyone who watches this show knows that it is based on points of view, the Coaching Game, which is one of the best tools that I've ever found. I think you'll probably agree,
love it.
Right? And it's a series of 65 cards that are designed to bring right brain and left brain thinking together, and it just is amazing what the results are. And we happened to meet because Jill was doing some work. I think you helped do a seminar here in Manhattan,
I did,
right?
yes.
Which turned out so good, and I couldn't make. But we decided, well, since we didn't get together, we would get together, and we did. And then I found out that Jill was a coach doing some fascinating things, so I made you come on the show.
Indeed, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And the rest is history. Yes, yes. So, Jill, from what I understand, and believe me, as all coaches, you have many hats.
Indeed.
Is that you do some work with teenagers, which I always say is a very courageous area to do. And specifically, what do you help them do? Do you take disabled? Do you take trouble? What teenagers are you looking for?
Oh, I work with all kinds of teenagers, basically teens who are looking for a focus. So I'm even going to back it up a little further, if I may.
Sure.
And start,
It's
by
your story.
Right. Well, start by playing with the cards here.
Yes.
And so I want to start off with the calling card, which is just beautiful in the sense of thank you.
Beautiful.
Just
Calling.
because I believe that my calling is helping people transform themselves and discover new and different things about themselves. So I've been a teacher, principal, and administrator years ago working with students with special education needs. And for the past 20 years, I've had my own business. You know me a little bit as a trainer also. But for the past 10 years, I've worked with families beginning the college search and selection process. And I came to that because of our daughter's experience. She had a pretty good experience. She went to a great school. We actually happened to end up going to the same school, not my suggestion. She didn't go through my coaching program. But it was based on her experience that I started this work, coaching teens and working with parents also. Because I believe that our system focuses on the nuts and bolts, meaning the things that have to get done, the essays, the testing, the paperwork. And what gets lost in the process is who students really are and what's important to them. What do they bring to the process?
Yes, I agree. I think it's just gotten more and more complicated, and I think the requirements are more and more stringent. The money is fantastic. I mean, you have to really, I would think you'd want to have your child know exactly what they want to do, and nobody does.
Right, it's hard. It's different than when we went to college. You know, it's a different world out there. There's a lot of application inflation, people applying to so many colleges because they're scared they won't get in.
Yes, yes.
And so I really work with students who are stuck, right? And so that would be my population for the most part. Students that aren't clear of the direction to take, and parents that want to be helpful but don't know how. And so whether I'm coaching parents or talking with parents, or I'm doing my coaching program with teens, I'm helping them discover where they're at and where they need to go, just like a coach does, right? And identifying the path for doing it. And so through my daughter's experience of searching for college, I noticed that I was having a lot more fun than she was. Because, because I got to see the colleges, I didn't have the intense pressure that she did, but I thought, you know what, this should be more fun for everyone. Students shouldn't be racked with anxiety, feelings of overwhelm and confusion. They should really get to a point where they enjoy as much as they can, which is visiting the colleges, imagining their future, and making their way through the essays and the testing with tools. And so that's how I came to things like the Coaching Game and other similar tools.
Well, how soon, I don't have children, so how soon did that process start? I mean, did she start as soon as she hit high school? It was like, okay, I've got to start thinking about, because they do ask you to take, you know, where are you going? And
Sure.
Who knows?
Well, and the reality is that we need to start preparing students in 8th grade just to start thinking about their interests. You know, what are their strengths? All right, I'm a big fan of positive psychology, so I do a lot with Martin Seligman's work. AuthenticHappiness.com is a great resource and a great book. And so I help students recognize their strengths so they can leverage them during the process. So I have them take an inventory and we work with those strengths. I have them tap into their values, what's important to them, to help them make choices based on their values, and also to look at their challenges that they're facing academically and socially. And so yes, we need to start talking with students at 8th grade. Did we start that with our daughter? No. My husband and I are both educators, so education was always part of our conversation at the dinner table.
Right.
And yet we really started in earnest at the beginning of junior year and started just looking at places and going out and exploring. And so that's where it all began, where we started the process. And she ended up in a great place, had lots of super choices, got accepted at 7 out of the 8 places that she applied. And I thought, gosh,
Wow,
I
that's
just
a
want
good
to.
statistic.
It is good. And I just want to help other students have a good to a great time doing it. And so
Let me ask you something. If indeed, you know, a parent goes, okay, my kid is stuck, is not going to college an option also?
absolutely. I
Yeah.
think what's important is that when you think about your future, it's understanding what your options are. And I think for the most part, many students don't understand their options. They don't understand what 2 or 4 year colleges are, what the differences are between a college and a university when they start looking. They don't know about taking a gap year and what they should be doing if they take a year off, or entering the world of work and what are the implications of that. Because the implications are social, emotional, financial. I mean, they're just huge. Taking any one of these paths.
Right.
And so for me, it also brings me to helping students become aware of and moving past any dependency, whether it's on their parents or the school systems, actually. Because school systems will hand out a packet, you know, maybe during junior year, certainly the beginning of senior year, and it's complete all of this paperwork, and you're going to be on the road to finding the college that's the best for you. But what happens is students then start to rely on people that they know, like, well, where did my mom go to college? Where did my grandfather go to college? Where's my best friend going to college? How about my boyfriend or my girlfriend? And those are not the keys to making the right decision.
That's exactly how I decided what my major was. My girlfriend said, I think I want to do sociology. I went, okay.
Sounds good.
It was like, yeah, and I did. And
Right.
it was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, and yes, I used it, but I was like, yeah, so you're offering. Yeah, so really, I limited you when I said you work with, well, I said you work with teens, but you don't just work with teens going to college. You work with teens who are at the crossroads now and want
Who
to
are
really
making
decide.
decisions, And I have to say the program that I created, it's called Making the Grade: Goal Set, Research, Analyze, Decide, and Evaluate. Those 5 steps
Oh, that's so cool.
I apply
I
towards
love acronyms.
the college search process, but it could certainly be used in thinking of what do you want to do in your future. And you know, that's the key to me. It's helping students and families become aware of the possibilities. Because I went to a great high school growing up. We had a few electives, so I got some ideas of what interested me, but not every student is in that situation. My daughter had some ideas, but you know, how many students experience anthropology or archaeology or social psychology or just any number of new, exciting, and different things? How do you reach for something when you don't know it exists? So you
Great
need to
question.
develop the
Yeah.
awareness around it.
Do you work, that's odd because I'm wondering, do you work with school counselors or in conjunction with them? Because I'm thinking that's what they should be doing, but I know they're overworked and they might not even exist anymore because.
You know, that's such a great question because, in fact, they do exist, but the national statistic is 1 guidance counselor for 457 students
Wow.
in the United States.
So it's not individualized attention. Yeah.
And so, they are overworked, and their focus is not only college or the future, your career, it's also are you on track with your scheduling and parent conferences and just all kinds of things. And honestly, not all guidance counselors have training in what it takes to help a student prepare for college. And so they are overwhelmed and overworked. And I have to say, it's actually been the toughest nut for me to crack, is that a lot of...
I'm so surprised.
I think you're not. I think you're not. But guidance counselors often feel, quite honestly, very threatened by what I do. And they don't understand that if we could work together, meaning students and I could work together around all these things that we've been talking about, they'd be so ready to do what the guidance counselors needed them to do, and they'd do it with so much more energy and excitement if they actually understood themselves and what the process was.
And yes, and I would think you'd be taking the workload, you know, or at least making the workload much easier for counselors.
Absolutely. So that brings us to clarity, or having a clear vision of what the steps are. And I think that's part of it, is that in schools, and I come out of school systems, and yet the reality is that many times in school, students are put on a path. These are the classes that you take if you're interested in this. You follow this schedule, you will graduate.
I think mine was divided into only two. One was, I think one was the academic path, and one was the
vocational.
Yeah, that was it, vocational, or secretary. We called it the secretarial, because there weren't that many options for females anyway. So it was either you were going to go to college or you're going to be a secretary. So, you know,
and it's so limiting. It's so not real world, quite honestly, in terms of we're not preparing our youth for the future if they don't understand that it's not about the particular content area, it's more about your skill set and what you bring to it. It's your maturity and your ability to not only survive but thrive in new and different environments. And so that's the key, is helping students think, quite frankly, outside the box that they're often put in, because it's easier to tell students, you know, this is the path, than to say, what would you like the path to be? There are so many different choices. So how will you use your choices?
Okay, and this is the the choice card, yes. Which also looks passionate to me, but
it does, and you should make passionate choices, and that's really it. And I just find so many of the students I work with are really locked into fear because they don't understand. And you know, overwhelm is not about having too many things to do, it's about not having a path for doing them. Not understanding what the journey is. And I think that's a lot of it. Also, in our school system, in general, it takes a very long time to start your testing, to go all the way through to writing your essays and making your final decision. The students that I work with, 6 sessions, 2 months, and aside from testing our essays, they're essentially done with their process. They know who they are, they know what they want, and they've chosen the colleges. There are over 4,400 colleges and universities in the United States alone.
Wow.
You know, and you can look outside the country too. And so there are lots of decisions to be made. And so you don't want to feel that overwhelmed. You want to have clarity. You want to be able to make your choices, and you need to focus on that whole process.
Focus. We were talking about that recently, yes. Focus, yes.
And honestly, I think it's really true with teens, just as it is with adults. People like to understand themselves better. They like to feel good about themselves, and I think this is an opportunity to do that. And not many people talk about the college search and selection process in those terms.
No, I think you're right. I think it gets lost in the red tape. It gets lost in, very rarely do I hear people talking about, well, what is it that you really want to do? It's like, what can you do? What can we afford to send you to do it as a parent? And so what if you come up with someone who has an unrealistic goal? Like, I want to be an NBA superstar.
Well, and who knows if that's unrealistic, right? Because the reality is, well, just because how you perform in high school may be different than how you perform at college. You have other kinds of opportunities. So having a sense of what you want is important to start to pursue it. So for instance, I thought that I wanted to work with children with autism when I was in high school because I saw a special on TV. And so I got to Clark University and I applied early decision in psychology. I got in, I started taking psych courses, and I liked it and I didn't love it. And I looked to education, and I started working with children with autism, and I didn't love it. And I said, so what do I love about education, and who might I want to work with? And so I started working with kids with emotional handicaps, the language back of the day, you know, back in that day. But the reality is I like students that are in my face, that are really just there all the time and pushing me. So I totally enjoyed that. And so I found my way because I chose a college that had enough options. So even when I changed my mind, I went from a single major in psychology to a double major in psychology and education, finishing in 3.5 years and getting hired out of my last teaching placement for a paid work.
Cool.
So it's important to have a sense of what you want and also be flexible to know that that may be the path you take and it may be something else. So you can't pick just a college because I want that major or I want to be with that person. It's what does it offer you in terms of possibilities? And so, you know, to pick up on your point and to also focus on
I like that
goals.
because now we're saying maybe flexible focus, you know,
Oh,
focus definitely, but also allow for life getting in the way and reality getting in the way.
Totally.
and you changing your mind, because we must have been watching the same television show, because it was like, I want to be a psychiatrist, absolutely. And I took the first semester and I went, I don't want to be a psychiatrist,
Right.
you know, and that's where my girlfriend said, social work. I said, okay, we'll do that, sociology.
And
yeah,
certainly
so,
related.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of...
But it was looser, and it gave me more options, I felt. It wasn't
Right.
as structured. Yeah. So, and I love this card because it's like, it is a little out of focus, but that's good because you can still see what's there and you can fine tune it whenever you want. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so to pick up on one of the points you made earlier, one of the young men I worked with, he came to me, his mom said, you know, yes, you're going to be, you know, sort of the answer to helping him find his path and keeping me out of the mix, which is another reason that parents often hire a coach. It's like,
I don't want to be bothered.
you know, I have other I have other
things.
things and other areas of expertise, and if I need to get up to speed on this, I can't do it as fast or as well as you because this is your area of work.
Right.
So this young man came to me the first session with a list of 21 colleges that he was interested in, and I said, "Wow, that's an amazing list. How did you come up with it?"
Really?
He said, "Well, you know, my mom went here and my dad went here, and my girlfriend's interested in this, and my best friend is interested in this, and I want, you know, a D3 school because I'm a soccer player or whatever." And so we whittled it down because we took a completely different tack. It's like, okay, let's get a goal around this. And the goal is that we're going to find what's the best fit for you based on who you are, your strengths, your challenges, your values, all of those pieces, what part of the country you want to be in, how large a school you want to be in, what are the variety of subjects that you're interested in, and yes, the school, you have to be able to play soccer. All right, so as it turned out, this young man came from a family of 4. Two of the kids in the family had academic challenges. They were children with autism. And this young man ended up finding a school that he wanted to apply to, early decision, and he got in, and he got a $30,000 scholarship.
Wow.
And quite honestly, it was a small private liberal arts college, which he would not have been able to afford to go to otherwise without that $30,000 scholarship. Because
Was it on his original list?
It was not. It was not
Isn't
part of
that
his list at
amazing?
all. And so he wouldn't have been able to go if he hadn't really taken the time to figure out who he was. The thing that made him the perfect fit for this school, he was just a match. He was interested in what they had to offer. This is a school that just has a particular philosophy, as every school does. You need to search for it. You know, people, parents, teens get stuck on big name schools. And what does that mean? And a big name is a name. What's the specific department or departments that you're interested in?
Yeah.
How many people are there? What are they doing? What are your opportunities for research, for study abroad, for just the variety of things that college can offer you? And so for him, it was a totally amazing experience. So the funny part of this, the PS to the story, is that he wanted to play soccer at college, and he got onto the team. He was sort of a walk-on, and then within 2 weeks of being there, he was cut. And I heard this from his mom, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was very concerned. And she said, no, it's all good. He's got a girlfriend. He was unhappy for about half a day, but he's really fine. And that's the importance of picking in a place that has many things to offer.
Yes, yes. Wow.
Right, so really getting clear on what your goals are, and of course aligning them with who you are and what's important to you.
Yeah.
So it's just, it is a big process. There are many steps along the way, and yet having a clear path and knowing that there's a beginning, middle, and end, and that you have support. I mean, you'll definitely face difficulty.
Yes.
You will have to persist.
We need 2 cards, okay?
We do need
Maybe
2
3,
cards.
I don't know.
Well, and you also need to trust in yourself,
Yeah.
right? And
And
make
it's hard
that
to
leap.
do at that age, you know?
It's hard to do at any age, don't you
know
think?
what? You're right.
Something new and different.
Good, thank you. Good correction. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is difficult to trust in yourself. Simply because you get so much input, you know, and I admire the mother who said, I want to stand back, please take over, and because that'll be enough input, you know.
Right.
He's got and he obviously did 21 colleges. He had enough to figure out.
And the reality is that I think our goal as parents is always to help our children grow to be independent young adults. And they're not going to do it by stepping onto a college campus. They have to have the foundation before they get there. They need to make big decisions before they get to college because they won't feel prepared.
Now, do you follow up if indeed they go to a college, they go, oh my God, what a mistake I made, or I hate this college, or I'm flunking out. Or
Happily, I don't hear those things.
Good.
I haven't yet.
All right, but I mean, is there a follow-up program if indeed they need to tweak it, and they say, oh, you know what, I want that gap year now, I need that gap year.
I haven't had any of the students that I've worked with come back to me and say I've made a wrong choice in terms of the college.
Testament to you.
They might say I'm going to move in a different direction, like I was thinking business and now I'm thinking something else. I totally get that. I haven't had that experience. I have worked though with transfer students that haven't worked with me but find me because they're at this crossroads. Like I don't know if I want to stay. I'm not sure this is the right place for me. How can I make a good decision?
People who should have contacted you in the first place.
Perhaps they should have. So what I want to do is always help people see opportunities,
yeah,
right?
And they're everywhere. And actually, almost every difficulty that we had is an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what I love about the coaching thing. It's like overcoming obstacles and turning, the old lemons into lemonade. Opportunities. So what opportunities do you encourage?
I encourage students and parents to think about this too, because families are a unit of varying shapes and sizes. But the reality is that teens and parents need to be thinking at the beginning of high school, but very much in junior and senior year, what are the opportunities that will prepare the student to step onto a college campus and prepare the students to let go of that, prepare the parents to let go of their students. All right, which is a really difficult transition. So I do a lot of work at Clark University. I do a lot of work as an alumni. I run workshops for parents on what is your life going to be like when your teen steps onto a college campus. And it's a critically important time because parents have put their focus on their teens for so long that they have a hard time focusing on themselves. And I want them to start imagining that earlier because it's healthier for them, it's healthier for their teens. To me, students should be stepping out and doing some volunteer work in the community that means something more than something they have to do for school. All right, so volunteer work, maybe some paid work in the community, doing a summer job, taking a summer trip, exploring a city or a town near them, really knowing how to use a debit card and a credit card and what's the difference.
Right.
And how do you manage all of these things? And have you ever been on a budget before? And just being in charge of themselves, getting up in the morning, doing their own laundry, cooking their own meals, being able, because when I put that question out there to parents, they're just like, no, I'm still getting my son up in the morning, or no, my daughter's never really done a load of laundry yet, or yes, we're 45 minutes from New York City, and yet she's never gone in on her own. She doesn't know how to use mass transit. She doesn't know how to read a map. And, I live 45 minutes from New York City, and our daughter spent 4 years going to the art program at the Fashion Institute of Technology. It was geared towards high school students. And she would go in, she got comfortable with the city, and felt that she could handle just about anything by the time that she was gone. Now, was she totally confident stepping onto a college campus? No. You step into anything new, if you're not feeling a little anticipation, maybe a little bit of challenge, then you're not really understanding what it's about. But to send them feeling as confident as possible in themselves, and in ourselves to manage our emotions around that is critically important. So I'm really all about the success for both students and parents.
That you know what? That is just amazing because you get so lost in the process of applying to colleges, but there's so much reality training that needs to go on too, like the budget and the credit cards. So you hear because they're college students are targets for the credit card because they just say yeah, and then they don't know how to follow up and keep the credit going. And the parents, the empty nest, I hate to use that, but the empty nest syndrome, it's like, okay, now you don't have this child at home, or if you do, he's coming home at night and he's not the same child. He's studying.
Absolutely.
And so it's either way. It's like, it's a big transformation there.
It is, and I have to say, it's funny that you should say that. One of my favorite books, just as a quick resource, is William Bridges' book called Transitions. And I literally started reading it when my daughter started her senior year, because we only have one daughter. We only have one child, one young adult at this point. And I knew it was going to be huge for me because we're all very close. And so I really planned my path. And I think we all need to do that. We need to help our teens talk about it or have conversations with them. And those are the conversations when you're in the car and you're sitting side by side and you don't have to look at each other and you can talk about all these really deep things. And they need to take place over time. And it's not just the 6 weeks before you go away to college.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, these are the important conversations in life. What do you want your life to look like? And how much are we willing to let our teens be the people they can become?
That and perhaps explains why I don't have children. That's always a difficult one, because when do you let go?
Right.
When do you shelter and protect? And yet I hear you saying that letting go is so essential, because you have to allow them to develop.
Right.
And everybody thinks, well, I'll throw them on the college campus and they'll develop there.
Right.
But
that's not the right place.
No,
and honestly,
no.
a lot of people think of the dangers on college campuses: sex, drugs, alcohol, all that kind of thing. They all exist in American high schools. They're all there. And in the homeschooling network, for folks that are listening from that network, they exist in social circles everywhere. So we need to be talking with our teens very early on, much younger even than high school, about all these things that are a part of life in general, and preparing them to make good, strong decisions for themselves.
Yeah, I guess, and also nurturing what you see makes your eyes sparkle, you know? It's like, oh, okay, you seem to like arts and crafts. Let's see what we can find, you know, or you seem to be you like dancing, you know? And nurturing that instead of going, oh, you need to crack on that book, you need to get that test done, you know?
Totally, and understanding that intelligence is so much broader than, you know, the standardized test scores, right? And so we need to think bigger on behalf of our teens and educate ourselves around that, or work with people that can help educate our teens as to what the possibilities are.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We've got like 2.5 minutes left. So tell me Major in You. That is your website, which is on the bottom there. What does that mean, and what will they find there?
Well, Major in You, for me, it's all about majoring in yourself and understanding yourself.
You're going to college,
yes, totally. And so the website is really geared towards parents and teens. It's two separate sections. There are articles and resources there for parents and for teens. There are links to the YouTube videos that I've done for both populations. I did a radio show for years, so you can find links to that, and that's geared towards parents. And there's an opportunity to sign up for a strategy session with me, a complimentary session where you can find out, like, where are you in this process? And do you know the path? Do you want some support? Am I going to be helpful, or are you looking for something else? So it's really a place where people can start to educate themselves around what the journey can be, which is so totally different than what it is for most students today.
Yeah, and I know it starts now with the standardized testing.
Yeah.
It's so early, and the kids go, I'm not learning anything, and this is no fun, and the teachers hate it. So, yeah, so bringing that kind of back into
it can be transformational.
Yeah.
And that's just a whole different view of the process, and there can be just an excitement about it that students don't often experience when they're just completing the paperwork and not focusing on themselves.
Right. Now, do you work with students individually, parents individually, students and parents together?
I tend not to work with students and parents together. I tend to work with parents individually or in groups, students individually or in groups across the United States and Canada, because I use Skype.
Okay.
So
great,
space and time are not really a barrier. and that's a cool thing, just because everyone's engaged in the process. And so people need to find what they want and need to know, and then get the resources for it.
Amazing. I just wish you had been around. I don't know, you know, I have regretted the sociologist. I wish you were around, you know. I wish this service was around and that people were aware that it was needed. But thank heavens that they are aware now, and that you're doing something about it. So what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way is to write to me, Jill@majorinu.com, or go on my website, find my phone number, give me a call, because I want to start the conversation and see if I can be helpful.
Okay, and that basically you're talking to parents who are.
I start with parents because they're the decision makers in terms of, is this viable for me? You know, would I like the help around this, and then I'll help my teen, or is this something my teen might benefit from because I want to stand back and just work on other things in our relationship as opposed to having to learn all this new information and this skill set.
Well, Jill Greenbaum is the person to let you know which is the best way. I thank you so much for being on the coaching game, and I love that we used every card in the deck almost.
I took some out too. It was so hard. There's so many great cards. Thank you so much, Laurie. It was a pleasure.
Yes, it was. Thank you.